New investors often struggle with the property due diligence process. It can be intimidating and stressful, especially if you don't know where to start, what information to review, and how to gather the right information to help you decide whether or not the property you're looking at is a smart investment or not. We're here to make that process a lot less intimidating. Hey everyone, Andy Trin from Tax here for another video designed to help you become a better property investor. Comprehensive due diligence in property investment is a risk management strategy that all investors should undertake before buying property. But unfortunately, we have seen buyers jump in and act quickly on a purchase, literally spending hundreds and thousands of dollars, and only after it's too late realize that they didn't complete the necessary due diligence and have made a big mistake. So as avid investors ourselves, the Tax team have put together a list of due diligence checks you need to consider before buying a property. You're going to want to grab a pen and paper and note these down, because this checklist can help you keep track of your due diligence process to make sure that you've done everything you can before buying your next investment property. But before we start, we want to be clear that this video is for informational purposes. In no way should you interpret this as financial advice. We always recommend working with a qualified financial advisor or tax agent to give you the best advice for your situation. Okay, so the due diligence process can be broken down into a few different categories: legal, finance, building, and market. Now let's start with market research. Understanding the market is vital to your career as a property investor, so you need to research and find out what is in demand and what will yield the most income and growth. You can focus on a few key market drivers. For example, are the rental yields sufficient to cover your cash flow needs? Yield variation is also a good indicator of growth. If yields are high, capital growth is typically not far behind. As market forces push rents and property values up, yields are driven upward as well. Capital growth is also driven by supply and demand. So if you're looking into how long properties are on the market for, or what the vacancy rates are like, could give you a good indication of what the demand is. You also want to drill down into the demographics of the location you're looking at. For example, consider an area where the majority of people are families with young children. Then ask yourself whether purchasing a one-bedroom unit makes sense, or whether a three-bedroom house would rent faster. Looking at different properties and spending several months shopping around to see what the market has to offer before you buy will eliminate a quick, uneducated, and emotional decision. We always suggest going over and above when researching the market so that you can figure out if the property you're interested in fits into your investment strategy. The next category on the due diligence process checklist is finance. It's important to get your pre-approval from your lender before you start searching on investment property. This process also involves doing some homework. You don't need to settle on the very first approval you'll get. If you're not shopping around for a home loan product, you will have no idea if competitors could offer you a better deal. So make sure you compare interest rates and take a little extra time researching what lender and product will suit your financial circumstances best. Once you get your pre-approval from your lender, you'll know exactly what you can afford, and you can start narrowing down the information and options you got during the market research stage of the due diligence process. After you've ticked market research and finance off the list and found an appealing property, you can move on to the due diligence for the building. There's no point doing your homework on the rental yields and capital growth in the area if you're going to end up settling for a property that's falling apart or a property that has undergone modifications that haven't been approved by the local council. You need to do a thorough inspection of the property itself. There are several different types of inspections that can and should be performed on a property you may potentially purchase. For example, a general home inspection should always be performed before moving forward with the purchasing process. It's also required by most lenders if you're using financing to buy the property. Generally, a certified home inspector or licensed contractor will inspect the overall condition of the house. This includes a full report on the condition of roof, plumbing, electrical, heating and cooling, kitchen appliances, and water heating. The inspector or contractor will then provide you a full report on any issues found and how severe the issues may be. You can use the report to calculate the potential risk and cost of investing in that particular property. In areas where termites are active, you should also have the property inspected by a pest exterminator. Another thing to consider is that properties are sometimes subject to the risk of fire and flooding due to their location. You should properly investigate these risks and consider the cost implications on land management, buildings, and insurance premiums. During this process, you should also find out if there are any restrictions around what type of property can be built on the block in the future. All land is subject to a planning scheme run by the local council. How the property is zoned and any overlays that may apply will determine how the land can be used. This may restrict such things as whether you can build on vacant land or how you can alter or develop the land and its building over time. There are also laws and regulations about how building and retaining walls are constructed, which you may want to look into to ensure any completed or proposed building work is approved. And if there has been any recent building or renovation works done, make sure to ask the current owner if there is builder's insurance or builder's warranty to cover defects in the work done to the property. It's also worthwhile to inspect the Division 40 and 43 assets as part of the due diligence process because depreciation claims on your potential investment property can make a significant difference to your bottom line. Something to look out for is the age of the property and if there were any recent building or renovation works done, because this will allow you to claim a capital works deduction. The structure of the residential building generally has an effective life of 40 years, which means you can claim the depreciation for 40 years as long as you're generating an income from the property. You can claim a capital works deduction on construction costs too. And in terms of plant and equipment, you'll need to find out if items like the stove top and range hood or the aircon units are newly installed or second-hand. This is because depreciation only applies for costs on new plant and equipment you paid for and installed, or plant and equipment that were included as part of the new property. But most importantly, it may be the difference between a cash flow positive or a cash flow negative property. If after you've gone through the building due diligence process, the last category of the due diligence on your checklist is the legal aspect. Firstly, don't sign anything without your lawyer. This includes offers, sales contracts, or any other piece of paperwork thrown at you. You can't rely on anything said by the agent or anyone else unless it is in the contract of sale. If any promise or offer has been made to you, you should ensure it's included in the contract of sale. There are two types of lawyers that perform different functions as part of the property transaction process. You have your conveyancer, who facilitates the transaction of property ownership from the vendor to the buyer. And then you have your solicitor, who will take care of all the legalities involved, check the contract, and advise you on the contract conditions and clauses. Even the most simple looking transactions can become complicated by legislation and regulations. So you'll want your conveyancer to consider things like local or national planning controls, the strata title, permitted uses, heritage overlays, and body corporate constraints. And you'll want your solicitor to consider things like contract clauses, settlement dates, and the zoning certificate. So those are the 4 categories of things you need to consider before jumping into your investment property purchase. Hopefully, after watching this video, you'll feel better equipped to perform your own due diligence. Remember, the purpose of due diligence in real estate is to collect enough information on the property to make the smartest buying decision possible. And one of the smartest decisions you can make is getting in touch with property professionals who can help during the purchasing stage and after you've bought the property to ensure that you are maximizing the value of your investment. Anyway, that's it from me. If you know a friend or colleague or family member who needs to hear this, please make sure you share this video with them. I'm Andy Trin from Tax. See you next time.